Community Council. Call this meeting of the North Fair Oaks Community Council to order. Let's start with a roll call.
Evening, commencing roll call now. Councilmember Juan Carlos Bravo.
Present.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo.
Here.
Presente.
Councilmember Linda Lopez.
Present.
Councilmember Johnny Gillespie. Absent. Councilmember Everardo Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz. Absent. Councilmember Blair Whitney.
Blair.
Here.
Blair's here.
Thank you. Councilmember Gabriela Ike.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Celani Corencita.
Present.
Thank you. And Chair Boxer.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is an AB 361 resolution. That discussion will be led by Tim Fox, our county counsel. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you and good evening. Once again, we've prepared a form resolution under AB 361 that allows this meeting to be conducted remotely. It continues to be the practice of a number of county agencies to meet remotely after making an adoption of these findings. We also recognize that each agency is trying to move forward with a plan for when and how to resume meetings in person. But we believe that adopting these resolutions provides the best flexibility for members to attend both in 100% remote meetings and going forward. So we will certainly advise you when it's no longer possible under the law to adopt these resolutions, but in the near term, we recommend that you make the adoption.
Are there any questions from council members with regard to the resolution? I see none. Is there any public comment? A public comment on this is limited to 2 minutes per person. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution for AB 361, which allows us to continue to meet remotely. Would someone like to make that motion?
Yes, I motion that the council adopt AB 361.
Do we have?
Second that motion.
Okay, we need a roll call then, Diana.
Okay, commencing roll call. Councilmember Juan Carlos Bravo.
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnny Gillespie is absent. Councilmember Linda Lopez.
Yes.
And Councilmember Everardo Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz is also absent. Councilmember Blair Whitney.
You're muted, Blair.
Yes.
Councilmember Gabriela Ike.
Yes.
Councilmember Celali Corencita.
Aye.
And Chair Boxer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion carries. Tim, we've got a moment. Could you kind of hit the high points of the discussion that we had this morning with regard to in-person meetings? The point you mentioned, people are interested in getting back together as soon as possible and that sort of thing. But there are a few legal and technical hurdles that we have to get through first. So if you could just make a few remarks on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. There's a team of people in the county manager's office that's working on transitioning back toward in-person meetings, and there are some technical hurdles that have to be overcome. We found that from experience, the getting together isn't the problem, it's the continuing to provide a remote option and the audio issues that often presents in the common meeting room. The technology that's used that allows your computer, laptop, or phone to mute your outgoing audio when you're talking and not cause feedback gets confused essentially when it's getting an audio source other than your computer itself. So having everybody all in the same room with their laptops open and their microphones on can really confuse the system that automatically suppresses the feedback amongst all the devices. And so we're still working really hard at making sure that the experience of meeting in what we're calling a hybrid meeting, not really a legal term, but I think everybody understands it means that some people are in the room together and others are participating by remote teleconference, that the technical challenges are somewhat more substantial than conducting entirely online meetings. But we're solving the problems one by one, and the Board of Supervisors is definitely planning on returning to in-person meetings and ensuring that it's a positive experience both for their participants and for the public, and then providing those resources and lessons learned to other bodies that wish to do the same thing. But there are some unique challenges for the meeting space for the North Fair Oaks Council as well. We just want you to be aware that we are working hard on giving you the option of returning to in-person meetings when it's appropriate. We also know that the governor has left the emergency declaration in place and probably will continue to leave it in place until around June 1st, we think. And we're definitely getting some feedback from folks that they would like to at least have the online option remain in place at least until then, and possibly longer if the law will allow it, because some participants have found that it enables them to attend, participate more directly in democratic meetings, and also the concern that we have that it isn't so much that people are afraid to be in the room together, it's that if you wake up the morning of an important meeting where you intended to cast a vote and you have one of the 20 possible symptoms of COVID-19, you probably don't want to be in a room with other people and will voluntarily stay home, and you may still want to participate. So in other words, we're continuing to plan for the possibility that people will want to participate remotely, even if there is a room where members of the public who can do so safely can gather and have a meeting. Have I hit the points you wish to address?
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you very much for that. Okay, our next agenda item is public comment. Anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. The council may not discuss or take action on items not on the agenda this evening. However, do we have any public comment this evening?
First, I would like to make a brief announcement that we do have an interpretation line that our Spanish interpreter will assist us with. The phone number is 877-568-4106, and the code to enter is 877-394-869. And Victor, would you like to provide this instruction in Spanish?
Gladly. Thanks, Diana. Through the chair. Buenas noches para todos aquellos que quieren escuchar esta reunión en español. Tenemos ahora sí interpretación en vivo para simplemente acceder lo que es el canal de audio. Por favor, Diana, si lo puedes poner en el chat, o no existe el chat. No existe el chat. Can you repeat those numbers for me, please? I don't have them offhand.
Sí, es 877-568-4106 y el código es 877-394-869.
Cuando llegue a su código de acceso, que es el, como dijo Diana, el 877-394-869, lo único que tiene que hacer es pulsar el símbolo de número y con eso puede entrar. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
During this time, members of the public can comment on any topic that is not on the agenda. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raise hand feature to organize any public comment. When you hear your name called, we'll send you a request to unmute your mic and you may begin speaking. Each person will be given 2 minutes to speak. Okay, we do not see any hands raised at this time. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Diana. Next agenda item is report outs. We'll start with the supervisor's report. Maggie, please go ahead.
Good evening, council members. My name is Maggie Cornejo, and I'm a legislative aide for Supervisor Warren Slocum. I have a couple of things on my list that I would like to report back. And the first one is regarding the North Boroughs Community Plan. The county held an internal meeting to discuss next steps for the North Boroughs Community Plan. And some of those next steps are the following, which is the first one, planning and building will put out an RFP and then hire a consultant to review the NFO community plan. And Supervisor Slocum has specifically suggested a consultant who has worked in communities like North Boroughs or who is minority owned. The consultant will gather their findings by the end of this summer of 2022. And they will also work with community partners like CBOs and of course the North Boroughs Community Council. And lastly, the consultant will bring back recommendations to the Board of Supervisors by December of 2022. The next item I would like to report on is on the new Empower library cards for students. So San Mateo County Libraries and Redwood City Library are launching a collaborative pilot for a new library card that's called the Empowered Card. The Empowered Card is designed to simplify and expand students' access to library resources from both libraries. And the goal is to provide these cards to all 62,202 students enrolled in districts that is served by San Mateo County Libraries and Redwood City Public Libraries by the end of this year. The third item I have to report is on Realize Flood Park. So the Parks Department continues to gain input from the NFO community regarding the Reimagine Flood Park. The Parks Department had an event at Casa Circulo regarding the Reimagine Flood Park and received about 40 surveys. And last night they met with Familias Unidas and gained a couple of more surveys. I'm not so sure on the number. I think they're still counting, but there was about 40 people on that call. So hopefully all 40 filled out the survey. And this Saturday, March 26th, Parks will host a Flood Park movie night showing the Disney movie Encanto, along with the Sheriff's Activity League, where there's going to be more outreach on the Reimagine Flood Park, and hopefully they can get some more surveys filled out there. And lastly, on April 22nd, the county will host the virtual kickoff event about why homelessness is a countywide issue. And if you would like more information or would like to register for the event, I will be sharing the link on the chat momentarily. And that concludes my report. If there's any questions or comments.
Does anyone have questions for Maggie this evening? Councilmember Lopez, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Linda.
Yes. Yes. Hi, Maggie. Thank you very much. So I'd like to request that Supervisor Slocum consider adding a council member, adding 1 or 2 council members to the interview, to participate in the interview process. That was done when the consultants were chosen for the construction of the Middlefield Road design. I believe it was actually myself and Dale Miller were part of that process. So I think for something regarding a consultant working on the community plan, I think it would be very appropriate and advantageous to have 1 or 2 council members participate on that committee as part of the panel. So I'd like to put that out there. I would like to have that information or suggestion rather given to Supervisor Slocum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. I'll make sure to pass on that suggestion for our supervisor.
Yeah, and please, it's important you remind them that it was the same way we did set it up when the consultants got hired on the, I'm trying to remember their name. There were letters. Is it AG? I forgot the name. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the company, but anyway, it worked pretty good. So thank you very much, Maggie.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Rodriguez, ever I see your hand up, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Maggie. Thank you for the report. I'm wondering if there's anything different to the library cards that will be given if people who already own those cards, do they need to renew them, or is there anything special about the new cards?
Good evening, Council Member Ever. I don't know exactly, like, too much detail. All I know is that they're supposed to have more access to research, but however, I can ask somebody from the library that to give me a little bit more detail what that means for card holders now, if they have to renew, or what's the difference between a library card now versus this new one.
Yeah, thank you. And in regards to the program to be launched on, I think you said April 22nd, is there any additional information we can find somewhere in the county's website?
Are you referring to the homelessness?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's going to be an event, a virtual event on April 22nd, and I'm going to share the link where you can find more information. I just have to look through some of my notes so that I can put it in the chat.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ever. Councilmember Cerrillo, Beatrice, you have a question.
A comment. The librarians of the school district met with Maria Diaz-Slocum. She's going to be our liaison to the public library. And what we were told was that the new card will have a new number. So yes, we are to register and apply, but like Maggie was commenting, the databases, there's going to be multifold access to and not for all users. So I think it's registering, and we will get a new and we will get like with the new number. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Prado, Juan Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, Maggie, a couple of points. One, I wanted to second Linda Lopez's suggestion about having council members in this process, because even though Flood Park isn't in North Fair Oaks proper, it is the nearest county park to us, and there's obviously tremendous influence from North Fair Oaks community into Flood Park. My second question to you, Maggie, is how much more time is there for community organizations in North Fair Oaks particularly to be involved in this process?
I'm not sure if I'm talking, if you're referring to like the flood park or.
Yes, the flood park, yes.
Oh, okay. So I think that Parks is still continuing to do their outreach. I don't know when the timeline, what the timeline is, like by when do they need to finish the outreach? Maybe I see Justin has his hand up, so I'm not sure if you would like to contribute to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks. So we're still absolutely inviting responses and engagement from the North Fair Oaks community. And Councilmember Prado, you're absolutely correct. Flood Park may not be in North Fair Oaks, but we know that plenty of North Fair Oaks residents use Flood Park. And of course, the surveys are intended to cover not only people who are in the neighborhood, but also who use the park. So the survey is open until March 31st. And so that's online. There has been engagement with multiple CVOs in North Fair Oaks. I know Casa Circulo. I'm trying to remember a couple of the others. I'm sorry, I don't have them off the top of my head. But there is still, a little less than a week left for folks to respond to that survey. And then, of course, the movie night on March 26th to give more feedback. There will be other opportunities and engagement in the future as the project moves along, but certainly this early feedback on the design is valuable, and that is only open for another week or so.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to that, to add to what Justin was saying, today I learned that there's 300 surveys that have been submitted through paper and 50 online, including with the outreach that's been conducted with Casa Circulo and Familias Unidas, and I'm not sure like what others, but and that's not, actually that was not counting the surveys from last night. So I think that they're still, working really hard to get more input from the NFO community. And I will say that yesterday I attended the Familias Unidas class. People were engaged and sharing what they would like to have in Flood Park and what their families would enjoy doing. So I think that it's a positive thing.
Great, thank you.
You have anything else this evening, Maggie, from the supervisor?
No, not from the supervisor, but I also would like to share that I realized that there's no chat box to add the link for the homelessness event. So I can share that through an email to the council members if that's okay.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's a webinar that starts at 10 in the morning. Is that correct, Maggie? It runs 10 to 12 that day, I believe.
I don't remember at the top of my head. I don't want to give you misinformation, but I will share the link where you can find that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maggie. Next up is County Manager's Report. Justin, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Esser, and I appreciate following Maggie because she took most of my list, so I don't have to go through those items. Just a couple of additional items. As you know, the COVID situation continues to evolve. Thankfully, case rates have come down quite a bit in the last few weeks. On Tuesday, we had an update from our health folks, including the deputy health officer, who said the case rates are about where they were in early December. So nothing, but certainly not at the peak of Omicron. We wanted to let people know that we do have test kits for residents most at risk and in need. And Office of Community Affairs is working with its network of partners to distribute those test kits into the community, including into North Fair Oaks. And also the Mask Mobile, which we've reported on before, that our Office of Community Affairs operates, will be providing test kits. The calendar is available online of where the Mask Mobile will be, and we can also share that location and calendar with you. The other update that I have for you is just something that I think we've talked about before, which is the Immigration Inclusion Survey that we've been operating for the last few weeks. If you recall, this is a countywide survey trying to collect information and data that will then be used and inform our development of a strategic plan, an immigration inclusion strategic plan. So that survey just closed on Sunday, and they will start processing that data, and we hope to have results in sort of the May-June timeframe on that. And unless there's any more questions, I have nothing further for the council.
Does anyone have questions for Justin this evening? Okay, I see none. We'll move on to our next agenda item, council members' reports. Let's start with Vice Chair Whitney. Blair, do you have a report this evening?
I think I'm unmuted. I had an opportunity, thanks to an invite from Ever, to volunteer at Kenyatta for a youth education outreach event. We were just some North Fair Oaks people volunteering, and we worked the COVID screening table. And it was just a really good event, and it was nice to be able to just volunteer to support it and to see people from the community getting out and youth connecting with the educational opportunities. And Middlefield, I continue to check out the progress of construction. I shared that press release with one of my coworkers that actually kind of grew up in North Fair Oaks. It's a really cool, like, interactive video thing where it talks about the street and the smarts. Whoever did it did a really good job. So kudos on that. And that's all I got to report. Good to see everyone tonight.
Thank you, Blair. Councilmember Prado. Juan Carlos, do you have a report this evening?
I do not.
Councilmember Cirillo, Beatrice, floor is yours.
No, I do not.
Okay. Councilmember Lopez, Linda, do you have something for us this evening?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever? Floor is yours.
Thank you. A couple of things briefly. So I've been part of the Woodside Road interchange planification. If some of you may know, I believe they came to present to our council some time ago. But in any case, the junction, in the underpass on Woodside Road at Highway 101 is going to be redesigned. There's going to be bike lanes and hopefully safe pedestrian walkways. But more than anything, the intent is to modernize that particular junction so that traffic jams are not created, considering that Woodside Road connects both Highway 101 with 280, and it's just an important venue for traffic. And so right now at this point, the plan is pretty much developed, and they're just looking for sufficient funding. There's several millions to be found for this work, and they have some funding already secured. A little bit from county, a little bit from the city of Redwood City, and other transportation agencies. So in any case, I'll continue reporting on this topic in the future. The other thing that I wanted to mention briefly is that the Day Laborers Multicultural Institute will have a COVID testing available every second Friday of the month for anyone who may need COVID testing. They may look up their address on the website. They're based here in North Fair Oaks. They have one office. And I think they have some limit, like maybe around 30 tests each time that they do this. But you can check with them. You'll find their information on the website as Multicultural Institute. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Ever. Councilmember Aki, Gabriella, do you have a report out tonight?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I have a few things to talk about. For COVID testing, Sequoia High School has COVID testing available not only for high school students, but for community members. You would just search up online COVID testing at Sequoia High School, and you can just book an appointment. I don't know if they do walk-ins, but they do have appointments. I also did attend Oye this last week with Siglali. I got to meet Everett in person, which was really amazing. And as a student point of view, as it was very informative and nice to not only see fellow high schoolers, but different community programs in Redwood City and especially North Fair Oaks come together to share workshops, get new skills, and it was a very nice experience overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kurincita Tsitlali, do you have a report out this evening?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And thank you, Gabriella. You pretty much summed up the Oye conference, which went amazing. I got to meet Ever and Blair in person. We took a selfie, y'all. We got to share that. I loved it. So, Oye, all of our hard work, all the planning, all the time and energy that was spent towards that paid off last Saturday. And I got to do a little special welcome from Kenyatta College, a little Kenyatta College statement, which was great. A lot of community members were there. It was just a great opportunity to rebuild community post-COVID, even though we're still in a pandemic. It was just really nice to get to see many community members and reunite with a lot of youth. And I got to see some old friends, which is great. But that's all for my behalf. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's at Lolly. See, my remarks, I too attended the Oye conference for the first couple of hours. And just to echo Lolly's remarks, it looked like it was just going to be a terrific day. And I wanted to add how impressed I was with the engagement of the attendees. It was a really interested, a really excited group of young people who seemed ready to take advantage of all the resources that were offered that day. So like I said, I was only able to attend the first couple of hours, the opening presentations, but it sounds like it was a terrific day. Only other item for me tonight is with regard to the North Fair Oaks Community Festival. I attended a planning meeting last week. Things are really coming together. A sponsorship pack is being created and a list of potential sponsors is being developed. If anyone on the council or in the public has ideas with regard to potential sponsors for the festival, please let me know. I should point out the sheriff's office has earmarked $40,000 for sponsorship this year. I believe that's double the contribution they made the last time. So that'll really help cover a large part of the infrastructure costs for the event. And then once the sponsors are lined up, we'll proceed with identifying the organizations that we want to have allocated booths. So progress moving well. Put it on your calendars, everyone. August 14th, I believe it's a Sunday, is the North Fair Oaks Community Festival this year. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion with regard to our NFOCC study sessions. We're talking about changing the meeting time. This was discussed informally at last week's study session. To make a long story short, a 6:30 start puts a good deal of pressure on council members, county staff, members of the public to, quite honestly, get home from work, take care of whatever responsibilities they have at home, have a bite to eat and be ready to go at 6:30. I wanted to get a sense from other council members to see if moving the start time back to 7 o'clock as we do our regular meetings would be a good idea. So are there any questions, thoughts from council members with regard to starting our study sessions at 7 instead of 6:30? Councilmember Lopez, I see your hand up, Linda. Please go ahead.
You know, personally, whatever is convenient and agreeable by everybody, I'm fine leaving it or moving it up to 7 o'clock. So whatever the consensus is, I'm fine.
Okay.
Either
Thank
way.
you. Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from council members on this? Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that changing it to 7 would make at least the time for our meetings more regular, in the sense that we don't have to think, okay, is it 6:30? Is it 7? That way we just know that both meetings have to be at 7 p.m. That'll be one advantage.
Any other questions from council members on this? Okay, is there any public comment on the idea to move the start times for our study sessions to 7 o'clock from the 6:30 when we start now?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 5, to propose to change meeting time of North Fair Oaks Community Council study session, please raise your hand now. Do not see any hands raised. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Then I will entertain a motion that we move the start time of the North Fair Oaks Community Council study sessions from 6:30 to 7 p.m. going forward. Would someone care to make a motion for that?
I will move to change the starting time of the North Fair Oaks Community Council study session from 6:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we need a roll call for this, please.
Commencing roll call now. Juan Carlos Prado,
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnny Gillespie will be absent. Councilmember Linda Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ever Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Reese will be absent. Councilmember Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabriela Ike,
Yes.
Councilmember Celali Curincita,
Aye.
and Chair Brooks is here.
Yes,
Back to you, Chair.
thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a letter to the County of San Mateo Board of Supervisors requesting their endorsement of AB 893. This is actually a follow-on from our discussion of SB 893 at last week's study session, which would provide free or reduced cost college for San Mateo County community college students using existing local revenues. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to consider having the council send a letter to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, asking the board to adopt a resolution in support of SB 93 and communicate that support to the legislative delegation representing the county in San Mateo. A draft letter was distributed to council members and was posted on the council website. And in attendance tonight, we have John Pimentel of the San Mateo Community College Board of Directors, who can provide a brief overview of the legislation. John, I believe you are speaking enabled and can unmute. There we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the council. This is an item that is entire county, but in particular, of particular use to our South County. And the idea is to enable an adjustment in state statute, which currently requires each community college to charge $46 per unit for students attending community colleges at any community college statewide, must pay that enrollment fee. And what we are hoping to be able to do is get flexibility in that statute, which would allow the San Mateo County Community College District to charge less than that $46 enrollment fee, all the way down to zero, if we so choose, as well as to use general fund monies for other non-academic student support services, such as food, transportation, perhaps technology, or even critical rental assistance, so that students can remain on track in completing their certificate or degree for transfer. The result of passing the legislation would be simply to give the county community college board the authority to explore programs that could be useful in correcting what is a 37% decline in enrollment that has occurred over the last decade. That enrollment decline is due to many complex factors beyond just enrollment fees, but eliminating enrollment fees and other related fees, parking, health fees, and other costs that create barriers to entry and barriers to completion for the community college students is the motivation for us wanting to support this. So we are going around and asking cities for their support and other organizations for their support. And I'm thankful that the North Fair Oaks Community Council has entertained this motion to request a letter from, or I guess, recommend to the supervisors to provide similar support. So that you know, this effort really got underway last year when we expanded the Promise Scholars Program from 2,000 students to 4,000 students. And that was financed with two primary sources. One was a reallocation of existing community college district funds of $6.75 million plus $2 million that was committed by our county supervisors. So our county supervisors are very much in favor of this initiative to try and create free community college, or at least reduced barriers to entry to the community college. I appreciate the council's consideration.
Thank you very much for that, John. Are there any questions from council members with regard to this issue? Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, go ahead.
Not a question, considering that we heard John Pimentel last time during the study session with ample time for questions and answers. But I read the letter, and I believe that at the beginning, on the first sentence, there may be an error. It reads that at this meeting on March 24, 2022, the North Fair Oaks Community Council voted to direct me to ask your support your Senate bill. So I think it maybe should be your support for Senate bill, if I'm reading it correctly. But anyway, so that is the only thing that I found where it may or may not be an error. But the letter reads fine to me, and I believe this is a good opportunity that our county should try to extend to our youth. So I'm in full support of the letter.
I can communicate that change prior to the letter being sent to the Board of Supervisors. So clear up the grammar on that, as it were. Very well. Vice Chair Whitney, Blair, do you have a comment, question?
Just a comment. I feel good having covered this during the study session, and I feel like I'm fully ready to support it. And it's a nuanced thing that we are only advisory to the Board of Supervisors. And we can't just pass resolutions saying that we support this or oppose it. So we're following the letter of the law and our role as an advisory committee to the Board of Supervisors. And I appreciate you, Chair Esser, for dancing through these hurdles so that we do this the right way.
Right, and thank you very much for that. And I appreciate the help of County Council as we try to do these sorts of things. And that's terrific. Councilmember Lopez, Linda, do you have a question or comment on this?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that first paragraph again.
Okay.
Just some of the wordage is like, it says at its meeting on March 24th, North Fair Oaks Community Council voted to ask your support. See, I would leave out to direct me. I would just say voted to ask your support for Senate Bill 893. And the rest of it's good. Because you're going to sign it as a chair. So it's, but it's not, we're sending it, it's all from all of us.
Right.
So I don't think you need to put in there to direct me. That's just my call. Everything else looks good.
Okay, no, terrific.
Yeah.
Then I'll take that under advisement. I don't have the letter in front of me right now, but
Okay. So
I've made that note and we'll make that change.
thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from council members? Okay, seeing none, do we have any public comment on this issue? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to send a letter of support for SB 893 from the North Fair Oaks Community Council to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, asking them to pass a resolution indicating the county's support for the measure. Would someone care to make a motion in that regard?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Very good. We need a roll call vote now.
Commencing roll call. Councilmember Juan Carlos Prado,
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Arroyo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnny Goldsby is absent. Councilmember Linda Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Edward Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz is absent. Councilmember Blair Whitney,
Aye.
Councilmember Gabriela Ike,
Yes.
Councilmember Celani Gulincita,
Aye.
and Chair Boxer.
Yes,
To you, Chair.
motion passes. Thank you very much. And thank you again, John, for coming in and speaking on behalf of the legislation. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all. I appreciate your consideration and support.
All right. Moving on to agenda item number 7. A recommendation from Planning and Building North Fair Oaks Rezoning Extension and Zoning Revision Project and Project Working Group. It's an overview of the proposed North Fair Oaks zoning expansion project, a request for council working group membership. That presentation is going to be given by Will Gibson of County Planning and Building. Will, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Esser. Good evening, council members. Let me just share my screen really quickly here. Okay, and you should be seeing the presentation now. As the chair said, this item is a request for North Fair Oaks council membership in the work group for the North Fair Oaks rezoning and zoning amendment project. I was before you last week and I presented in some detail on this item and there was extensive discussion. So I'm just going to very briefly recap the high points of that presentation and then make the request for a formal nomination of members from the council to participate in the work group. Okay. Again, a technical difficulty, which we should have resolved now. Okay, my apologies for that. So once again, this project is Planning and Building Department proposes to study expanding the recently adopted high-density mixed-use residential zoning districts along El Camino Real and Middlefield modestly to incorporate the full blocks between El Camino Real and Blenheim and Middlefield and the adjacent Huntington Street. And also to modify and to improve the existing zoning, to apply some best practices and to conform to state laws that have changed since the adoption of those zoning districts. And as you recall, we did adopt new zoning districts over multiple years between 2015 and 2019. Those phases are shown here. And the expansion would be essentially these areas marked R3 here, R1 in the light yellow, and then the R3 areas behind the El Camino zoning here. And those are shown, majority of those are shown in more detail here. And the purpose of this is to ensure that the zoning through those blocks is consistent across contiguous areas to facilitate consistent development, not to require developers to do spot rezoning in order to facilitate the development of those parcels. And then again, to revisit and revise the standards, because we have found that there are some difficulties in application, some inconsistencies, some things that are not clear, and some things that are simply inapplicable because the state law has changed since the adoption. The schedule, which we did go over last week as well, the project has kicked off this month. We'll be doing analysis from April to June of this year. Community outreach is starting now, and we will be going out to the community to do stakeholder interviews beginning next week. We'll be presenting some draft alternatives for the zoning project from September to November, ideally of this year, environmental analysis from April through May of next year, and then presenting draft zoning amendments from the end of this year through early next. And then ideally, if the project stays on schedule, the final zoning presentation proposal and adoption would be between March and June of next year. So again, we are going out to the community for stakeholder interviews, and some of you may have seen notices go out for that. That'll be starting actually March 28th will be the first round. The advisory working group, which is being formed now, will kick off in April, and the consultant will be coming for a much more comprehensive formal presentation to your council on April 28th, as scheduled now. So we will agendize that. If the schedule changes, I'll notify the council, but that is the plan at present. So turning to the primary purpose of tonight's item is membership by the council in the advisory working group. The purpose of the working group is to provide expert advice on the project, guidance, to provide a liaison to stakeholders, to the departments and the community. It's comprised of multiple agencies and departments in the county: Housing Department, Office of Sustainability, Public Works, Planning and Building. It will have a representative from Caltrans and from the Office of Community Affairs as well, and the Supervisors District, and of course, membership from the North Forks Council itself. And so Planning and Building's request is that the council formally nominate 2 members, is our suggestion, to the work group. The suggestion has been 1 adult and 1 youth member, but of course it's the council's call what kind of nomination and what kind of membership you prefer, but that is what our proposal is on the table tonight. With that, that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions you may have prior to discussion.
Are there any questions from council members for Will on this? Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Will. In terms of time commitment, what does this imply? How regularly are you thinking to meet for this purpose?
So it's an excellent question. I think it will be variable throughout the process. I would say expect on average every other month, but there may be times when it's monthly, but no more frequent than that.
And thank you. My second question is regarding community outreach. What is the plan for reaching out to the communities that live around these areas?
So the initial phase of outreach is directly reaching out to CBOs at this point, but we would rely on the input of the council members that are on the working group to help us identify other outreach methods. So it's not entirely firm yet, but we are reaching out to the CBOs and stakeholders that we know of now, as well as to people we've worked with in the past on other North Forks projects. But I think we are also open to having the working group help craft the outreach effort as we move forward.
Thank you. And finally, one suggestion, and that would be to allow having 2 adult council members and 1 youth member I think that considering that most of us are, fully employed, and even the youth members, studying and working, at times it may be difficult to attend the meeting. So I think that having the maximum number of council members allowed to gather might be wise, just in case, one cannot attend, at least there can be sufficient representation. But thank you.
I would say we have no objection to that. I think that as long as that does not run up against any Brown Act restrictions, which I don't think it does. We just didn't want to make a too significant an ask of the council, but if that is what the council sees fit, there is certainly no objection from on our part. And I see that Tim has turned on his camera, so he may have a no.
Well, if the proposal is to appoint more than a majority of the North Fair Oaks Council, that would be a potential Brown Act violation. But if it's less than a majority, it's not.
So it's at 3, we would be just fine, 2 adult and one youth member. Councilmember Currencita, I see your hand up. Zitlali, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I know you mentioned probably how many days we would meet, but do you all have a time that you all were thinking about?
I believe the proposal at this point is Monday afternoons. We are not certain. We're going to be polling the membership to determine if that's feasible, but that's the initial proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Is there any public comment on this item? Note that public comment is limited to 2 minutes. I see a hand up among the attendees. Kent Mansky. I do not believe he can speak if he is not listed as a panelist, though. Can we move Kent over to be a panelist? And I think there he is. Hello, Kent. You had a comment on this agenda item?
Yes, hi, Will. This is Kent Mansky. I was part of the zoning phase 2 planning, particularly the NMU on El Camino Real in North Fair Oaks. So there's 2 issues that I'd like to encourage you to work with the North Fair Oaks Community Council on addressing, is to make sure that, one, that at public planning meetings that involve the county and developer, that there is follow through. And I share that because in the past, where there's been a problem is in change of leadership at the county level, thereby the loss of institutional knowledge of conversations that occurred between the public and the county. Secondly, I'd like to encourage you to be forthcoming as much as possible with the residents along Blenheim of the infrastructure that will occur above the developments that may be proposed or planned. And I share that with you because in our particular NMU area on El Camino Real, we were very surprised at the additional height of HVAC units, of antennas, and of a variety of other infrastructure things above the building that substantially changed the view of the structure to the residents of the adjacent property. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Is there additional public comment on this agenda item?
Members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 7, North Fair Oaks rezoning extension and zoning revision project and project working group, please raise your hand now. I do see one more hand from Gabriela, so I will grant you the access to speak. Okay, you may begin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. It's just in support of the more that we can encourage participation and open the lines of communication with members of North Fair Oaks, the better it will be. Because as we all know that are familiar with this community, it's hard to reach out to members of the community sometimes, but we have to encourage the participation nonetheless. Because what we don't want is to repeat what's been done in the past sometimes, where projects are done with very little input from the community. So as much as we can, I want to encourage everyone to try to listen to the voices of those that are gonna live with this project. Thank you.
Oh, that was kind of hard to hear.
Yeah, the last part I had a tough time hearing
I had
too.
a hard-
Gabriella, you have some time available. Could you restate the last 2-3 sentences that you said? Your volume faded out a little bit.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
No, it's not better.
I am so sorry. I've had trouble with my computer before. Can you hear me better now? Can you hear me?
It's kind of choppy, Gabriella. Just try it again.
Sorry. I'm trying to increase my volume. Can you hear me?
That's better.
Thank you. Anyway, I was just saying how in the past there have been projects that don't necessarily involve the community as much. And ultimately, we're going to be the ones living with these projects. So even though it may be difficult to reach out to people, I think it's really great if we can try to keep that in mind at all phases of the project so that people can really have an opportunity to provide feedback.
Okay.
People from the community, of course.
Okay, I believe we got the essence of what you were saying, Gabriella. The community involvement, engagement, and contribution is going to be important in this. And indeed, that was something that Will mentioned in his presentation. So, thank you very much for your input tonight.
Thank you.
Is there additional public comment?
I would like to ask if there's any public comment on our interpretation line.
Thanks, Deanna, through the chair. I don't see any at the moment.
I do not see any more hands raised. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Victor. I'm not sure how to do this, to be quite honest with you. I guess the easiest way to start would be to look for a show of hands of council members who might be interested in serving on the working group, both regular council members and youth. We can do this via show of hands. 2 adult, 1 youth member is our goal. Do we have people who would volunteer? And keep in mind, Will's statement that the meetings are going to be Monday afternoon. So it would have to be people that feel fairly confident that they could rearrange their schedules around Monday afternoon meetings, given, quite honestly, the relatively short time frame for this project. Show of hands, indication of support. Which of our youth members might be interested in this? I see Lali's hand up. If you think you can, you could do this, Lali, I would support having you on the working group. How about the adults in the room?
Well, do any of our council members live anywhere near the designated areas? I don't know, Blair, do you live in proximity to the designated area on El Camino?
I'm a half a block away from Blenheim.
Because that would be ideal if you volunteer to do this.
I'm tempted to volunteer, but I got kind of a blue collar job where if I don't work, I don't get paid. And I'm not sure if I can take that many afternoons off. If it's only monthly, I could probably do it. But, you know, it's a hardship to be cutting my income just to volunteer to be on a committee.
Understood. Other members who might have an interest in this?
And through the chair,
Yes, Linda.
I think Will did say more or less on the time commitment that it was variable, but probably every other month and most likely in the PM. Is that, so, okay. No, I just wanted to remind people what on the time commitment.
They're in the afternoon. Is that correct, Will? Not the evening?
Our plan at present, from working out the schedules that we know so far, the suggestion has been afternoon.
Okay.
And the suggestion has been Monday afternoon, although that can change, but we are intending to have it in the afternoon, yes.
Okay.
And Will, when's the start date and end date on that?
So the first or probably the first or second week of April is what we're targeting right now. Of course, it will be based on the availability of all of the final working group members. And then it probably would carry through until we have a draft zoning proposal on the table, which would be early next year, ideally.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. I will dive in first. I will volunteer to serve as one of the adult, I shouldn't say adult, my goodness, one of the non-youth members on the council. What was I thinking? If we could find another regular member to volunteer, that would be terrific. You know, and if not, Will, you came looking for one regular member, one youth member. If Zitlali and I come away from this as having volunteered, and I do get the name of someone else who would like to volunteer, we could let you know if it would work, if that would work well that way. I would like to have 2 members of the council.
And through the chair, we're missing
Yes,
a
Linda.
couple of council members tonight.
We are, absolutely. So there might be availability.
Maybe they
there.
might want to, I'm thinking of Jennifer.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
And Vice President Whitney is raising his hand. I'm not sure if he's changed his mind.
Come on.
I'll volunteer as an alternate member with
Yay.
Brooks.
All right.
There we go. Good
Excellent.
to have you on there, Blair. Linda brings up a very good point about having someone, you know, near the area where this rezoning is going to be considered involved. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the accommodation you'll make to be there. So I think you've got your names, Will. That's terrific.
Great. Do we need a motion through the chair?
I don't believe we do, but maybe Council Fox can help us with that.
If it were a matter of appointing someone from an excess number of volunteers, I probably would suggest a motion, but since people are volunteering in roughly the numbers that are needed, I don't think it requires a council action to formalize their participation in the group.
Okay.
That was my thought, but thank you for confirming that, Tim. Okay, well, thank you very much, Will, for your presentation. I look forward to working with you on this, as I'm sure Zitlali and the vice chair do as well.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the County of San Mateo Equity Programs. It's going to be a presentation by Shireen Malakef. I knew I was going to screw that up. Gosh darn it. Malakefzali. I beg your pardon, Shireen, the county's newly appointed Chief Equity Officer. Shireen, the floor is yours. You're muted, Shireen, unfortunately.
Okay.
There we
Can
go.
you all Hello, everyone. I'm Shireen Malakefzali, she, her pronouns. Thank you, Chair Esser, members of the North Fair Oaks Community Council, county staff, and members of the community for joining us to hear this presentation. I'm going to be sharing my screen. if that's okay. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties this evening, so I think I have it figured out, but I want to apologize in advance if it takes me just a little bit longer than usual to get things situated. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, great.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. So I'm here today to share with you just a little bit about what the county has been doing over the last several months. I joined the county manager's office in last May 2021. So it's about 10 months now, coming up on a year. And we have been working hard to identify how do we move this large effort forward, this large vision, and really hear from so many of you and who've been in this work for many years now to make sure that we are charting our path effectively. So today I'm just going to take us through defining equity and how the county's been defining equity, talk to you mostly about some early efforts underway, and then hear any questions or comments or feedback that you might have for me. I utilize the definition of equity as just and fair inclusion into a society where all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. And in order for folks to be able to reach their full potential, we need to be working to create the conditions that enable that. And that is what the work is in front of us. What are those conditions that enable everyone to reach that full potential? I like to take the time to differentiate between equity and equality. These are terms that often get confused, and equality is giving everyone the same thing. And as you can see in this picture, if you give everyone the same thing, not everyone is able to achieve the goal of watching the baseball game. You can see that people have different starting points and also different levels of barriers in front of them. Equity requires us to think about what each person needs to be successful to reach that full potential, and then to be able to provide the resources to get them there. And ultimately, as we continue down our journey, the idea is to really look at what is maintaining this uneven playing field. Why are some people starting lower? Why are some barriers higher? And really rebuilding the context that we exist in. The folks that we were sharing that start at a lower level and have more barriers are not a minority in our county. They're the majority. About just under 2/3 of our population identify as people of color. We have a very large immigrant population, with 35% being foreign born and 57% of children being born to immigrant parents. We have over 30,000 that identify as LGBTQ+, and that number could be much higher. We have limited data sources on this topic. And people with disabilities are 4%, 65 years and under, and then almost 30% for those 65 and above. So the majority of our community is facing challenges, barriers, and not starting at the same footing as others. So one of the first things that we did was figure out, how do we think we can equitable or create more equitable outcomes in the community? And if the community is over here, what's our role in the county? And so this right here is what I call a theory of change, which is just a kind of terminology that says, well, how do we think we can get from with the changes that we want to see in the community? How do we get to just and fair inclusion? And what can we as a county bring into that? And as a county, what we can offer is this input, which is county transformation, bringing an equity lens into all of our operations. This is something that Supervisor Slocum, when he took the helm as president back in 2020, said, which is that he'd like the county staff to bring an equity lens into all that we do. If we're able to do that, if we're able to bring an equity lens, then what we should see is a change in more equitable resource allocation, more equitable service provision, policies, processes, more equitable democracy, in turn, creating a more equitable culture within our county, the Big C County, that then contributes to a stronger sense of belonging in the community, Other jurisdictions and organizations also make strong commitments to equity and all have power and space to advance their aspirations and needs. That could help create the conditions where people experience and their full potential. And we see this as something that is cyclical. So when there are these community outcomes, when people feel a stronger sense of belonging, then they can have a stronger influence on how we transform the lens that we bring in and ultimately continue to evolve as community county partnership. This is not all in place right now, but this is sort of where we want to be by the end of 2022. We have the Chief Equity Officer position. We have, through a racial equity resolution sponsored by Supervisors Canepa and Slocum, identified the Office of Racial and Social Equity as something that the Chief Equity Officer would be building. We have a core equity team, which is an interdepartmental team working together to identify what specific actions and metrics could we, each department and interdepartmentally, could we take to bring that equity lens into our work. We have 9 committees to advance that work and move it forward. Many departments are now holding equity teams themselves to implement the actions that are in the Racial and Social Equity Action Plan. We've also are fairly regularly connecting with boards and commissions, as well as health equity initiatives, to better understand what the community is priorities are around equity, what the needs are. And then I've held two community equity forums to date to get feedback from the community on the types of frameworks that we're building, the language that we're utilizing, the data that we're sharing, and the actions we're taking forth. And the hope is that this year we will be able to pull together a community equity committee that will be specifically providing us feedback with what the vision of the Office of Racial and Social Justice should look like, what should be the mission, what should be the key functions of that office. And together we would co-host community equity forums. Some initial projects to share that we have taken on. Really a big piece of at the beginning was building some infrastructure. What's the purpose for this brand new role? What's the theory of change? As I shared with you, a more full, I shared with you the definition of equity, but we've been really developing a framework for how we approach equity, building this interdepartmental team with 9 interdepartmental working groups that have specific projects that they're advancing, engaging stakeholders and learning from them, from community-based organizations, community forums, boards, commissions. We have also had an anonymous survey for all of our staff called the Government Alliance for Racial Equity Survey to give us feedback on how well we're doing, what our staff understanding right now to be equity efforts, what would they like to see, so we can track our progress over time. Through board partnerships, we passed a racial equity resolution, Supervisors Canepa and Slocum. Supervisors Slocum and Groom recently passed an anchor institution framework resolution, which focuses on thinking about the economic opportunities that our county generates, the people that we hire, the jobs that we have, the dollars that we spend, and making sure that we are as inclusive as possible with how that funding is made available and the opportunities to advance our local community. We have also had some special projects to bring, such as the Equity Through Art webinar series, which has brought forth different cultural experiences in San Mateo County and the history of, for example, the Nairobi, East Palo Alto Nairobi movement. The Filipinx community experience will be featured next week. We've also brought forth the experiences of Indigenous Ramaytush Ohlone, among other things, in a partnership with the county library. We've also been working on developing a racial and social equity action plan. So being very specific, working with our departments. What are some actions that we can take right now to move equity forward within your departments? And what are some specific interdepartmental efforts that we can fill the gap on? So our action plan includes over 20 departments that have cataloged specific actions, metrics. We also have interdepartmental actions that I'm going to share with you a little bit more. These are interdepartmental work groups that have come together, whether it's around policy or developing tools to advance equity or community engagement, that have specific efforts underway this year. One will be to actually train our staff. So if we expect to bring an equity lens into our work, we need to make sure that all staff have the resources and are trained and capacity to bring that lens in. We're working on developing an equity impact tool that will aid in providing guidance to staff on an equity impact statement on board memos. This was requested by Supervisor Slocum as part of the racial equity resolution to have an equity impact statement placed on all board memos, in addition to the fiscal impact statement that we currently have. In order to do that, we wanted to provide some clear guidance on how can staff tell whether there is an impact and how do they state that. So we're working on a tool and some guidance around that. An inventory of equity related data sources. We're also really looking more deeply at how we integrate equity into our performance planning processes. So departments are looking, we're piloting an anti-racist results-based accountability framework with several departments, which essentially means that what we're looking at, what are the root causes of inequities within each department, and identifying what actions could we take to advance those root causes. I'm sorry for the background noise. We're also developing an equity-focused community engagement toolkit. So how many of our departments are doing community engagement all the time? How are we bringing an equity lens into that community engagement? We have staff affinity groups to help support and create safer spaces for staff to be able to share opportunities to advance, to bring forth challenges that they may experience on staff or opportunities that they see within their departments or beyond. I mentioned the Anchor Institution Framework Resolution that was recently passed. We're also developing a specific action plan to identify how do we do inclusive procurement? What does it look like to make our procurement opportunities, the business opportunities we have, more accessible to small, locally owned businesses, for example, and also making sure that we continue to diversify our county workforce in alignment with the eligible workforce in our county. We are also continuing to engage staff in the community to learn how we can better improve our strategies, our frameworks, our actions. None of this is set in stone. We see ourselves as active learners in this space. And we will be looking to diversify as well our boards and commissions to the degree that we can. This is part of the creating a more equitable democracy, is making sure that the representation on our boards and commissions for a formal community voice and our decision-making processes are as diverse as the communities that they serve and bring the voice to. And then to begin to plan out the build for the Office of Racial and Social Justice. This includes adding staff capacity, which I'm very excited about. I'm in the process right now of recruiting for an equity manager, and through the generosity of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, also hiring on an equity fellow. And as we continue this work, I wanted to bring forth, many of you were really helpful in sharing the recovery survey that we had a few months back, where we came to the community and asked what were their top priorities for an equitable recovery, particularly focusing in our most impacted communities, as the board was making some final decisions around remaining recovery dollars. And the top priorities that the community shared with us when we heard from over 1,000 impacted community members was stable and affordable housing, access to food, affordable childcare after care programming, job opportunities, mental health, and in particular, system navigation and outreach support. So making sure that people were aware of the existing resources that were out there and had support navigating those opportunities and resources. So finally, before I close, I just wanted to share that this is just the start for us. We've been in this, many of us have been in this a long time. Many of you have been in this work a long time, but really bringing a concerted effort into the county manager's office to help coordinate across departments is new for us as a county. And so it's going to take a while. We're going to have to stay committed, hold steady leadership when things become challenging, which they will be. Continue to have a clear vision and our values and equity. Make sure that we maintain strong and trusted relationships with our community leaders who've been leading on equity for a very long time. Make sure that we're intentional and focused on change that's needed across the organization, that this is not a special initiative or one project or program or allocation, that this really is about a fundamental change in the largest assets that we have as a county, which is our programs, our services, our staffing. And that this will take time. I think that's probably the hardest one for me, is to be patient. There's a lot to do. There's a lot that needs to be done. And so having patience so that we set up the infrastructure right. My vision is that if we set the infrastructure right, then we have windfalls. Then we'll reap the rewards of that, putting that infrastructure together down the line. And part of that includes the Racial Equity Action Plan that holds us accountable to performance metrics. So with that, I just want to hear if you all had any feedback for me, any questions, and certainly if there's anything that you want me to be aware of.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Shireen. Do we have any questions from council members for Shireen? Councilmember Lopez, I see your hand up, Linda. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, whoops, let me get this up here. Shireen, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. I had actually a question about two entities that I actually I'm not sure where they fit, on the map or on the chart. And that's the Sheriff's Department. Are they doing their own thing, or are they part of the process? And where do the labor unions, where is their role in all of this? Thank you, Shireen.
It's nice to hear your voice, Councilmember Lopez. Sheriff's Office is included in this process. They have been very engaged and have identified numerous strategies, including a partner. I'm sorry, I'm hearing some feedback. Let me see if, including partnerships with potential partnerships with Stanford and the community. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it's the community equity and policing organization to help collect data on how well they're doing now around issues of equity, and then identifying recommendations to advance their work forward. And as far as the labor unions, they have not been engaged. This has been a staff focused or effort with the Racial Equity Action Plan, and they may have their own processes underway, but I have not been interacting with the unions directly, though some of the staff obviously are involved in this process.
Yeah, I think that's important because of course they represent the employees. So anyway, I'll put my pitch in for the unions. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. More than a question, a comment, and first to thank you, Shireen, for coming on to talk to us about this very important. I would call it activity as you clarified, that it's not only a project, but this activity, because it's a breath of fresh air to hear that that San Mateo County is making a concerted effort to make equity present throughout all the departments. And just to say that for communities like North Fair Oaks, and there are several throughout the county. I mean, I'm also speaking about East Palo Alto and South San Francisco, Pescadero, and a few other communities that share very many similarities. And so some of these communities are very different, considering the demographics, the various cultures, and how diverse these communities are. So these unusual communities may require more dedicated efforts to apply the equity that is necessary throughout the county. And I want to instill a sense of urgency. I believe that it is now when we need to take on equity and make it happen, because obviously we are coming out of the pandemic, a very long pandemic, and also the social movement of Black Lives Matter and Me Too, which has re-energized all of this work. And I am always afraid that as we go back to some sort of normality, that the concerns for equity and social justice, social environmental justice are going to be washed down a bit. So I always try to encourage a sense of urgency in this type of work, so that we do it all as soon as possible, because it is necessary. So thank you very much. I know that in you we have an excellent advocate for our communities, and I'm thankful.
Thank you, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Ever. Are there additional questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Lopez, Linda, the floor is yours.
I just want to say, Ever's correct that this is going to, it's work that will take a while. It's work that has to be done, but it's not going to happen overnight. Just as inequity, racism, and discrimination has been institutionalized, this work is about taking down that wall. And that is, again, and I always try to, as I mentor youth, this work doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process, but if people stick with it and build that foundation, we can institutionalize equity and go in a better, positive direction. Yeah. So Shireen, I was so happy to hear when you got this position. I think you're the ideal person to take it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Linda. Are there additional comments or questions from the council? Okay. Do we have public comment or questions for Shireen?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 8, County of San Mateo Equity Programs, please raise your hand now. I do see a hand raised on the attendee. Laura Kaplan, we will grant you the access to speak. Okay, you may begin.
Laura, I believe, oh, there we go.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Hello, thank you, Shireen, and council members. And I especially wanted to say I agree with Ever in terms of the urgency of this matter. I specifically had a question about the place of climate equity in terms of this larger endeavor. I'm very concerned about that. And I think that especially it's an area that we need urgency. I don't know, I know you're just getting started with the structure. I'm just curious about where that would fit. If we don't have clean air, clean water, those, the other kinds of things are not going to, if we don't have good health, the other things are not going to be as important. So, I'd like to talk about trees specifically. I know that Justin and I and some others have had conversations about, the barriers that the county has put up in terms of trying to increase and maintain our tree canopy and how we can work through those barriers to remove them as part of an interdepartmental effort. So, just like to put that on the table, but also if you have an answer as to where this would fit and how maybe people could get involved, because I know there are a lot of people who are very interested in climate equity and specifically have a lot of background with working with trees. I would love to know about that or how I could be involved.
Chair Esser, is this something you would like me to respond to? I'm not sure if there's any more public comment. Please let me know how you'd like me to proceed.
Go ahead and respond to that, please, Shireen. I don't see any other public comment at this point.
Sure. Thank you for your comments. I wanted to share that my background, actually, I came to working on equity through my work on the environmental justice movement back in the day. I was an environmental science major, in fact, in undergrad, and really, I think, got activated and understood equity and structural forms of power and privilege through my understanding and orientation of the environmental justice movement. So climate justice is certainly close to my heart. I know that our Office of Sustainability has been really thinking about the equity lens and in and across all of their work that they're doing, and the climate action planning that they have been taking on. And as part of their racial and social equity action plan, they have also committed to the development and implementation of an equity tool. So using an equity tool in their decision-making processes and their planning processes to make sure that they're answering all the right questions and not holding key blind spots. I don't know the specifics around the tree issue that you mentioned, but it sounds like you are working with the right people in the county to advance that.
Thank you, Shireen. Do we have additional public comment this evening?
Chair Brooks, I do see one more hand raised, so we will allow Gabriela. Mhm. Okay. You may begin, Gabriela.
Has Gabriela been promoted to panelist, Diana?
Let's try doing that, see if it works.
Okay. And let's see. She was on mute as well, so she's still on mute. Gabriela, you can speak, but you have to take yourself off mute.
Well, I didn't have a comment. I think I might have.
Okay, very well.
You're unmuting me.
Okay. This was Gabriela. Okay.
Valencia.
Got it. It's the hand is down now.
Okay.
Let's see. I see Kent Mansky with his hand up. Do you have comment, Kent?
Sure, I will grant him the access to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, Kent, you may begin.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
Thank you. This has been a real treat to hear this focus on equity and equality. And I so appreciate your presentation. What I would like to encourage us to do is to start right here at home in North Fair Oaks. We have an upcoming Healthy Community Murals project that is asking the community to look at our issues through an equity lens and to clearly identify what are the issues that are of concern to us that defines a healthy community. And I applaud completely the county's higher ambitions for solving the problems that we have. And what I would encourage is that the Healthy Community Project, mural project here in North Fair Oaks, be a stepping stone to guide the county how influential the county's citizens can actually be towards that goal in both identifying, collaboratively working together to identify and to create through a public art project the deep concerns that affect citizens every day. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for the Community Council for your supporting these equitable issues. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kent. Do we have additional public comment this evening?
I do see Gabriela Valencia again. Let's see if the mic is working now. Okay, Gabriela, you may begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Gabriela.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think the other Gabriela was being unmuted before, but I'm glad I made it. First of all, thank you so much for this presentation, Ms. Malek Afzali. I hope I'm pronouncing your name close to correctly. I'm so glad to hear the focus of all your efforts, and I look forward to hearing more of the progress that you're making. I have lived in this community for a long time, and I also work at the North Fair Oaks community clinic at the Fair Oaks Health Center. And one of the things that I notice the most is that there are many services that are available, but our community cannot benefit from them. And I'm sure that other communities that are marginalized, like North Fair Oaks, have similar barriers, where if everything for the county is done in the same way, like a website, it may not be as accessible to everyone, especially those that struggle with English or technical abilities. And so I was happy to see that one of the items of focus is the system navigation and support. And I want to put in a word for tailoring that kind of support to the actual needs of each community, because what we may need in North Fair Oaks may be a little bit different from what may be needed in Pescadero or in other incorporated communities. Most of all, that's where I see the issues, where the county has a large population to cater to, and a lot of the times we fall through the cracks because we need special support. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment this evening on this item?
Would also like to ask our Spanish interpretation line, Victor, if there are any public comment on your end.
Thanks, Diana. Through the chair, I don't have any at this moment.
Right. Thank you very much, Victor, Diana, and thank you very much, Shireen, for your presentation. We look forward to hearing from you again as progress is made, excuse me, on achieving equity both in the county organization itself as well as outside in the county. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda tonight is an update on the Middlefield Road Improvement Project. We have Christophe Lizage to give us an update. Christophe, the floor is yours.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Let me share my screen and start the presentation. And can you guys see the presentation okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So thank you, Chair Brooks. My name is Christophe Lisai. I'm the Principal Civil Engineer for the Department of Public Works, and I'll be providing you guys with a update on the project progress since our last update. I believe the last time I came and presented was June of last year. And so I'll be presenting on the construction since that date, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of my presentation. So just as a reminder, in terms of the project limits and some of the key components, the project limits go from MacArthur Avenue to about 6th Avenue. And of those, the roadway improvements start generally at the railroad crossing or Pacific Avenue and go all the way down to 5th Avenue. We are also doing a utility undergrounding as part of this work. So that will be taking all of the overhead lines off of the poles, including PG&E, all of the telecoms, placing those underground. And we're also using this as an opportunity to improve the sanitary sewer from Douglas Avenue to 5th Avenue. So the project will include several key improvements for this stretch of Middlefield Road. The first one being a road diet, which will change the current lane configuration of 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction with a center turn lane. This will give us the necessary space to install some of the other pedestrian and bicycle improvements for the area. So this includes wider sidewalks, includes a buffered bike lane, new street and pedestrian lights will be installed, and as well as improving all of the existing crossings and installing rapid rectangular flashing beacons, which if you've seen those driving around, they're the kind of push buttons you push that are not at signalized intersections that tell cars to stop so that pedestrians can cross safely. We'll also be planting trees and landscaping as part of this project. So this project includes a total of 61 trees to be installed and close to 1,000 smaller shrubs and bushes that will be installed in the landscaped areas. We're also making this smart corridor. So we're going to be installing public Wi-Fi with the help of our ISD or Information Services Department that we work with the county. We'll be installing smart benches where you can charge your phones, smart receptacles that will notify us when the trash is full, smart parking, and traffic analytics. Construction is moving along great, and we hope that what you see on the screen will be a reality in the near future. As far as some of the schedule updates, so since our last meeting, I believe it was in June, so we have awarded the project at that point. So the project was awarded to Granite Rock Construction. The not to exceed amount for the project was $21,044,550. The majority of the funding source is using Measure K funds for a lot of the street improvements, but there are several different funding sources. We're using Rule 20A, which is a PG&E program to do the undergrounding work, as well as working with our Fair Oaks Sewer District for the sewer improvements, and then working with the various utilities for any work that we're doing, which includes Cal Water. Construction, we issued the notice to proceed on May 17th of last year, and we anticipate the construction to last about 18 months with the goal of wrapping up at the end of this year. As far as the construction sequence, the first thing we want to do is we want to get all the underground work completed. So this will include the sanitary sewer pipe, green infrastructure and storm drain improvements, as well as the joint trench, which is where all of the overhead utilities will go. This has been occurring over the last 13 months. We recently started the main joint trench work between Pacific and Dumbarton. So I'm sure as many of you drive or walk the area, you can see that we've done a lane shift and lane reconfiguration from Pacific to Dumbarton. This allows our contractor to do the work in the street. I'll have some photos a little bit later on in the presentation showing that work. And so once we are done with the joint trench work, we will then use that opportunity to do some of the sidewalk work. We're thinking of doing this work in a half block segment at a time. And what we mean by that is like the south half of the roadway and then blocks at a time. So right now we're working between Pacific and Dumbarton. There may be times where we take more than one block depending on how big they are, but generally we're trying to limit the area of disturbance for the community, the businesses, while still giving our contractor enough area to work to be productive. At all times, we'll make sure to maintain business access, both for the pedestrian access as well as vehicle access for some of the auto body or repair shops. And so once the concrete has been, all the concrete work has been completed, we'll be going on the southbound side of the project first, working our way from Pacific to 5th, at which point we will turn around, do the northbound lanes, working from 5th to the railroad track. Once all that is done, we will work on the road reconstruction. We will also be installing street lights, the trees and traffic signals. We'll have to install some railroad improvements by the railroad crossing, which we're working with Union Pacific Railroad on that. Once the project is completed, then our contractor leaves the site. PG&E comes in, as well as the other utilities, and they start pulling wires from the overhead and into the joint trench. And so typically that works is the tallest or the highest utility starts, they'll pull their wires off of the poles, they'll pull it through the joint trench, test it, and then they'll work down, but the last utility will be removing the poles. We'll also be working on installing the public Wi-Fi. And then lastly, we'll energize the underground system, remove the poles, and the project will be complete. As far as some of the construction that's occurring now, sanitary sewer work is the critical path for us. So we were working from the deepest utility and up. Generally, sanitary sewer is going to be the deepest. So these show just some of the work we're doing. We're replacing all the sanitary sewers in the area, as well as manholes. This also includes all of the lateral connections for the businesses along the corridor. What's interesting about this project is our Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District has a large diameter trunk line that runs through Middlefield. So most of you are probably not aware, but there's a 24-inch sewer line that runs underneath Middlefield. It carries a lot of sewage, and so we're happy to say that that work has been completed with no issues. And so all of the sewage is flowing through the new system, working as intended. So that was a big win for us. We're also doing the utility joint trench. You can see through these photos, it is complicated work and is the majority of the underground work that's part of this project. As you can see on some of the photos, the vaults that are being installed are very large. They're difficult to install, but our contractor is very experienced and doing a great job. Next couple of photos just kind of show the complexity that we're dealing with. As you can see, we have several different utilities that are on the existing overhead poles. And so each one of those needs to come off of the pole and into a conduit. you have a large amount of conduits. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. And so we want to make sure that when we do the work, that ultimately what's installed is appropriate for all the utilities so that they can pull all of their lines and have the conduits in the space that they need. This last few pictures show the recent work that is occurring on the mainline joint trench. As you can see on the photos, there is the K-rail installed on the left side of the photos. This is where the work zone is separated from the traffic on the other side. Again, this allows our contractor to have the space they need to perform the work safely and get the amount of production that is needed so we can finish this project. Additionally, we are installing green infrastructure. So for those of you not aware, green infrastructure is a way to turn stormwater from gray to green. It's mandated by the State Water Board and is intended to help with pollutants. Stormwater is a very high source of pollutants, especially during the first rain of the season, as it washes off all of the kind of dirt and oil and all of the kind of toxic chemicals that you would typically expect from a roadway due to the heavy use from cars. And so the green infrastructure is intended to be able to treat and store that water. It's also going to help with some of the nuisance flooding that has been occurring in the North Fair Oaks area. I'm sure people that have lived there have noticed that on heavy storms, there's certain areas that get flooded. And so our hope is through the installation of this green infrastructure, we will be able to capture some of that storm water stored in some of these basins. And then we also tied it into the existing storm drain system so that we can convey it away from the roadway. As stated earlier, there's going to be bioretention areas, and so this just includes some of the cleanouts that are going to be installed to make sure that it's working properly. The storm drain system is not fully built out in the area, and so this is going to have a significant improvement for some of the more regularly occurring storms that we anticipate. As far as access during construction, that's definitely a key area of concern for us. We want to make sure that access to businesses during construction is maintained. So we've been working closely with the contractor, the Office of Community Affairs, and local residents and businesses to make sure that we keep them updated of what to expect as construction progresses. To that end, we've limited the area where the contractor can work. So we're limiting them right now to 1 to 2 blocks at a time. Again, recently we've done the traffic lane shift so that they have the work area, and that we're basically calling it a train. And so that will be moving southerly as the work progresses. We're also, once the concrete work is anticipated to start, which is going to be in the next few weeks, all of the existing sidewalks are going to be removed. And as part of our contract and requirements of the contractor is they're going to need to build temporary access to all of the businesses so that pedestrians can continue to enter businesses. And we're also making sure that businesses that don't have pedestrian access but need vehicle access, that is maintained as well. We work with the contractor and the businesses to make sure that delivery trucks can deliver on a periodic basis when it's scheduled. Emergency vehicle access will be provided at all times, and then we're continuing to coordinate with Samtrans to make sure that bus service is not interrupted with the installation of temporary bus stops and notices on bus stops that are affected where the next nearest one is located. These photos just show some of the pedestrian access that we maintain. The left photo shows the pedestrian access while we're working in the road and still haven't removed the sidewalk. The next photo shows the lane shift. So this is between Pacific and Dumbarton looking northbound. As you can see, there's 1 lane in each direction with parallel parking, and then the K-rail that separates the work zone from the travel way. So we continue to review and assess the lane shifts. I think when we initially installed it, there was some confusion with some of the local motorists, and so we worked with Emma's group, Cecia, to gauge how the community and how the drivers in the area were feeling about it, and made sure to make changes so that it's clear and not confusing to motorists. This just shows some of the access for vehicles that we continue to maintain. You can see there's brakes in the K-rail that allow for the delivery trucks to come in, so to be off the roadway, as well as maintaining access to driveways for businesses that need that for their daily operations. I'd also like to take this opportunity to just discuss the fact that it is a construction zone, and we're always want to make sure that safety is our #1 priority. So this includes the public, our contractor, and the county team that's out there inspecting. So please be aware of the lane configuration changes. We're at the point of the project now where the lane configurations will be changing on a likely monthly basis as the work progresses. And so whatever you can do to share the information with your friends, family, and colleagues, please let them know. Be aware of the construction when they're driving through Middlefield Road, have them slow down. We are putting in temporary stop signs and kind of changing the typical traffic flow for the area. So just be aware that at any point in time, the lanes will be different. There'll be, stop signs and to obey. The new stop signs we install, be aware of the construction zone so that everybody can continue to be safe in the area and the project. We continue to provide weekly updates, and so the best place to stay up to date on the project is to visit the website, which is middlefieldroad.org. We have a weekly meeting with the contractor, and subsequent to that meeting, we provide an update on the anticipated work. So please use that to stay up to date. Also, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us either by phone or email. Our email is monitored by several people that are on the project. And so if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please give us a call or shoot us an email. We also have our community affairs office information if you have any comments for them. Their phone number and email address is listed there as well. So that completes my update on the project. I would be happy to take any questions now. There is a second part to my presentation on the efforts of our community outreach. So just so everybody's aware of that.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Do we have any questions from council members this evening for Christoph?
I do. This is Linda. Hi, Christoph. Thank you. I have a question about where are the transmitters going to be positioned if all utilities are going underground? What's the plan for that? Are they going to be on top of buildings?
No, so those go underground as well.
The Wi-Fi transmitters are all going to go underground?
No, the Wi-Fi transmitters go on either the streetlight poles or the traffic poles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, because we're used to seeing the big old things like, yeah,
Yeah, no, they won't. Sorry to interrupt. No, they won't be of that large of a scale. My understanding is it's like a mesh network, and so they'll be installed, at certain intervals along the corridor, and then be linked with each other. And then at some point they'll be hardwired to the county fiber network. And then once it's plugged in, it's kind of like your home Wi-Fi system, I guess, for lack of a better word, except much stronger and more sophisticated, and provides, much stronger and faster signal.
At some point, can we get a look at what it's going to look like, or is it too early, or what?
Or the actual Wi-Fi components?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to see if we have the exact submittal on that, but I think we have in the design plans have a conceptual of what it would look like, so we can definitely share that. And then once
we can put it with all our other information. I would like to suggest that, or request it rather. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Linda.
All right.
Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, you have a question?
Yeah. How does the smart parking work, and does it include enforcement?
I'm sorry, you said, how does the smart parking works in terms of enforcement?
No, how does smart parking work, and will it include sufficient enforcement? And I ask because, you know, in this community, many times enforcement is hard to come.
Sure. So the current configure, or the current system we're looking for smart parking is a puck system. And this isn't 100% confirmed, but basically what will happen is pucks will be installed in the pavement at each of the parking spots. And those then detect a car whenever it's parked there. We will then have access to a dashboard, which kind of gives us the information that we can use for whatever reason we want. And so we can see how long cars stay there. We can see how often, how many cars come in throughout day in and day out. And so it'll just give us a lot more information to kind of identify the hot spots. Public Works doesn't actually do the enforcement. And so I would imagine, you know, we would share that information with whoever does the enforcements to kind of give them a better understanding of exactly where some of the parking hours are being abused, so that they can do increased patrol in that area, is how I see it.
Great, thank you. And then just one last suggestion, and that is to, if at all possible, to please mark the reduced traffic lanes for sharing those with cyclists, because now one single lane, and with all the construction taking place, you know, it's a huge distraction for motorists, and that could be particularly or extra dangerous for anybody using their bicycle around the construction area.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. I will confirm to see if we have the share the road signs is what we typically put on in our construction zones. I'll confirm that those are in the traffic control plan, and if not, we'll see what we can do to install those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Prado, Juan Carlos, you have a question for Christoph.
Yeah, thank you, Christoph, for your presentation. A couple of concerns. I'm glad to hear the number of trees that are proposed to be planted. My concern is of the existing trees that have been planted a number of years ago south of Fifth Avenue that have not been very successful, including vandalism done to them. And I'm just want to know what measures is the county planning on taking for the number of trees that are suggested are going to be planted. I didn't see on your schematics there any security cameras. Is there any plans for having security camera along the corridor?
No, not as part of this project. There is an irrigation system installed as part of this project, which I think will have a significant benefit to the all of the landscaping that we're installing. I mean, generally, what we've seen is the reason trees don't do a good job is just the lack of soil they have, and so we made sure to, you know, design this in a way to provide as much as we can so that once they're installed, they have the ability to grow. In terms of surveillance or anything like that, no, we're not planning on installing any kind of cameras as part of this project. I mean, we definitely would rely on, you know, the community to kind of let us know if there are any issues or concerns about areas that could potentially have vandalism, and then we could see what can be done.
Okay, just because of like I said, this is already, you know, those trees have been planted years ago, and it's only been a few blocks, and there's already been issues of submergence And these are just accusations of that they've been hacking at some of those trees because they feel that they're blocking their business signage. And so my concern is if we're planning on planting over 60 trees, I just want to know what measures will be taken in order, for this, this previous experience not to continue going forward.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I can check in to see with some other departments, maybe some of our enforcement departments, to see what they typically do. And I'd be happy to get back to you guys.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council members? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this agenda item? See, I believe.
Yeah, we do have a couple hands
go.
raised. One sec. Okay, Kent, I will grant you the access to speak.
Hi, Christoph. Thanks for your presentation. This is a request that you advise council and the public who is making public art decisions regarding the Middlefield Road project. Is it the developer or is it the county, with awareness that public art decisions are deeply important to our community? And I share this with you because I've been part of the North Fair Oaks Public Art Work Group for a long time. And we began this process of Middlefield Road in 2017 with many community meetings about what the public was looking for within this development regarding public art. And since that time, a lot of our requests for answers have gone unanswered. And most recently, the San Mateo County Office of Arts and Culture was not even aware that there was a public art component that was included in this project. So my personal observation, when I reviewed the incredible videos and the fly-throughs that you've had on the project, there's been very little representation of public art. And that which I saw, which was some tile work at street level, was actually colonial in nature and did not, in fact, at all represent the cultures of our local communities. So before this all went on too far with people making decisions that really didn't involve community history, community and participation, I wanted to make sure that I voiced my opinion that I think it's really important that the county at this time communicate to us, the council, the public, what is the public art component. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was not fully in my position when the design of this project was going on or being completed. I know that there is a art component in some of the public benches that we are installing. And so I'd have to take a closer look to see exactly what that entails. And I'd be happy to share that with you all. I think generally the public art component for the county is Public Works does not typically administer or oversee that portion. I know that some of the recent public art requests for the area include like the mural at the 2nd Avenue and Middlefield parking lot. And then I think there's another effort for the 5th Avenue grade separation underpass. But as far as public art on this project, I know we do have some decorative benches that are being installed. And so I can look back at our files and see exactly how we came to that decision. And then see what other opportunities there are for incorporating that aspect.
Do we have additional public comment? I believe Gabriela Valencia has a comment.
Let me grant her the access to speak. Okay, Gabriela, when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Kent comments were communicating. I was part of the North Fair Oaks Middlefield Redesign Committee years ago, before all this project started. And at that time, the committee was told that there would be art and that would be incorporated into the design, and that those decisions would be brought back to the community at a later time when those decisions were to be made. So I'm hoping that also, as Kent mentioned, that those decisions will be brought to the community so that we can have some input. And I also want to echo what Councilmember Prado's concerns were about the trees that were planted years ago on Middlefield Road, on the part that was already finished. And as many of us can see, there are many trees that are completely hacked. And I think, I would imagine that happens to be by some people that are concerned about the tree canopy blocking the signs of their businesses. I think many of us wouldn't even know who to contact. So we need a clear message to the community as to where to voice our concerns, who is the right person to contact in the county. Because otherwise those things continue to happen and we just don't have a good way to get the county involved. Thank you.
Thank you for your input, Gabriela. Do we have any other public comment on this agenda item?
We'd like to check in with our Spanish interpretation line. Victor, are there any public comments in your end?
Thank you, Diana, through the chair. I don't have any at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And thank you, Christoph, for your update on the progress that we're making. Final,
So
Yes.
there is the a second part of my presentation. If this is related to the efforts from our Office of Community Affairs. And so if you guys would like, I can go over that.
if you could, I'm trying to respect the time here, but indeed the outreach on this is something that's very important. So please go ahead.
Yeah, and I know I am the messenger, and so I will just go ahead and start. So community and business outreach. So the outreach efforts to date, there's ongoing communication and engagement. I know Emma and her group have been canvassing and doing one-on-one outreach. There's been other means of communications and then next steps. So in terms of ongoing communication and engagement, so the OCA business analyst has become a point of contact to help answers and mitigate events that affect businesses around the construction zone. There have been, the business directory now has 151 entries into it. And then this includes businesses along the corridor. In-person communication is approximately 10 businesses a week. And then phone calls and email communication is approximately 5 a week. There's generally 3 industries, which is food and restaurants, automotive and groceries, and that's the majority of businesses in the area. And so I know that that group has, can you guys?
Yeah, we can see your presentation as well as your notes. And next slide.
Gotcha. Is that?
There we are.
There we go. Sorry about that. And so I know that Emma and her group have retained an office on site, and they are holding office hours now as well. As far as increasing awareness, we do have weekly meetings with the construction team. This includes DPW, OCA, ISD, and the contractor. And so we meet on a regular basis to make sure that we're all on the same page. They also have a monthly Go delivery project updates, which has 391 subscribers. And then they continue to do the canvassing and one-on-one outreach, as well as sending a postcard to the everybody in the North Fair Oaks area. And so the monthly Gov delivery bulletin. It describes the upcoming work happening, and then it has 2 bulletins sent at the same time to the same subscribers, and that information is both in English and in Spanish. There are also billboards that are going to be installed, if you guys have seen it. So there's a billboard at the intersection of 5th Avenue and Middlefield. And then I believe there's a new one going to be installed soon that kind of reiterates our message of slowing down and sharing the road for bicyclists to help with that safety aspect. We also have the website that I mentioned earlier. So recently the website includes project background, information, and project related documents. Recently, we've seen an increase of 90% total web views. And those are not unique views, but seems like the interest is going up. So the website link is shared on a monthly basis. Then the information can also be found on the majority of the information that we present to the community. So that includes flyers, postcards, and courtesy notification. Let's see. As stated before, we get about 391 subscribers to the monthly delivery. And then the canvassing includes flyers to find parking, office hours survey, and then courtesy notifications related to construction. So as we as we move down the corridor, we make sure to notify the affected businesses of what they can expect. There's banners that we're also planning to install around the construction zone. Part of this is the shop local effort that the county has started, as well as on Samtrans bus shelters. We have flyers that lead to the website that are both posted in English and Spanish. So these are installed at 3 different locations along the corridor. In terms of canvassing and one-on-one outreach, so the business analyst and OCA outreach team have expanded their efforts to keep the business and community informed of the upcoming work, as well as providing access to useful information and resources. So the flyers include the free parking lot that identify the lots at 2nd and the SFPUC lot at Berkshire. Courtesy notice, again, related to construction. And then we also use this as an ability to share some information about COVID-19 free testing that's available in the area. In-person outreach. So there, on average, 10 to 15 businesses are being contacted each week just to kind of check in. Because of the COVID-19 surge, the office was being postponed, but it is online now. And so we have hours that are starting March 23rd, which was this week. So the hours are every Wednesday from 9 to 11 a.m. and from 12 to 2 or by appointment. So Cecia from the Office of Community Affairs is the lead on that. She is there every Wednesday, and then as well as needed. So if at any point a business or a resident wants to talk to her on site, she just needs to give her a call or email her. And her information is on the flyer that has been distributed in the area. We also have ongoing communication with the community and business owners. So this includes phone calls and text messages. And so some of the communication that we've been receiving, I will spare you my Spanish reading of this, but I really appreciate you always responding to my calls and finding a way to fix the issue affecting my business. And so Emma, Cecia, and her group have definitely built a lot of good rapport with the businesses there. You know, we try to be as transparent as possible, and I think that that's evident by the amount of input and communication that we're receiving from them. As far as other means of communication, we're maintaining an effective email communication with several of the other key stakeholders, which is the District 4 supervisor staff, as well as your council. There was also an article that was recently featured in a local newspaper that talked about the work. It was published in early March, and that was put together with input from this team. And so we wanted to thank everybody for helping put the piece together. It was for the Redwood City Pulse article. And so if you are curious, you can search Middlefield Road, or you can scan it, scan this QR code, and it'll take you to the article. As far as next steps, so we'll continue to provide monthly updates. We are doing a project newsletter that's going to be bilingual, and it's going to be married to all the residents in North Fair Oaks. We continue to provide weekly updates to the project websites, and then we're starting a Samtrans campaign. So the bus ad, there's going to be 320 buses countywide, and then the program will last at least 3 months. And then the newsletter will also be distributed all around North Fair Oaks for approximately every 8 weeks for a total of 6 editions.
Just interested in.
And then lastly, here's their contact information again. I won't go over that to spare some time. And I would be happy to answer any questions. I might not be the best one to answer it, but I'd be happy to relay them to Emma and Cecia.
Do you have any questions from council members with regard to the outreach plan around the Middlefield Road project? I'm not seeing any questions from the council. Do we have any public comment with regard to outreach? I believe Kent Mansky.
Kent, I'll give you permission to speak.
That was an error. I apologize.
Not a problem.
Continue on, please.
Not a problem, Kent. Okay, well, thank you, Christoph, for the presentation, both on the structure and the progress of the project itself, as well as the outreach that Emma and her team are doing. They've gone way above and beyond the call, letting people know how the project is proceeding and how it may impact them both in English and in Spanish. So thanks to everyone for that.
No problem. Thank you for your time. I apologize for the lengthy presentation.
Not
lot
a
of
problem.
Information to cover. So thank you again.
It's an important issue for our community. Thank you very much. Final agenda item for tonight is a presentation from the Redwood City School Healthy Meals Committee. It's going to be given by Jessica Shade, who's the chair of the Redwood City Healthy School Meals Committee. And I believe we have to promote Jessica to a panelist, if I'm not mistaken. We could do that. She's in under Jess S. There we go.
Hi,
Jessica.
everyone.
Hi there, Jessica.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to talk about school meals in North Fair Oaks. I know it is really late, so I'm going to try and keep this short and to the point. I am the chair of the Healthy School Meals Coalition. We're a group of around 200 parents throughout Redwood City with the goal of improving school meals in the Redwood City School District. I am a second-generation Latina and have been working on food equity and sovereignty for over a decade. So this is an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. First, I want to say that I'm so thankful to the Redwood City School District for supporting our students. I want to note that they have been working with the Healthy School Meals Coalition. So I don't want any of my comments to reflect negatively on district staff at all. The problems with school meals are deeply rooted, and it takes a lot of effort and support to change the status quo. So just to give you a snapshot of what school meals look like right now, most of the entrees are pre-made and pre-packaged, and the lunch menu primarily consists of a rotation of corn dogs, pizza, chicken nuggets, and hamburgers. They also have the infamous sun butter sandwich as a vegetarian option, with a few other entrees thrown in occasionally, but that's kind of the bulk of the menu right now. Most of these options are pre-made in a factory. They get frozen and then reheated at school for students. They're usually ultra processed, they're heavy on carbs, salt, etc., and low in fresh ingredients, fiber, and protein. And what we hear from the students is that not only are they not modeling healthy eating habits, but also when they get reheated, they don't taste good to the students. A lot of parents deal with this by just packing their kids a lunch to take to school, no problem. Unless you are one of the 50+% of students in Redwood City who rely on school meals because they come from low income or food insecure households. A majority of these students live and go to school in North Fair Oaks. So the kids in this neighborhood are disproportionately impacted by low quality school meals. Our committee has been talking with a lot of parents and students in North Fair Oaks to gauge the impacts of school meals. We've been going to schools at drop-off to talk with students and parents directly. We've been engaging with community organizations and events. One of our members, Marcelene Luna, who's on today, spoke at the Casa Círculo Cultural Live program a couple weeks ago. We've been talking with families at the library, passing out flyers. And so here are the top points that we hear over and over again, almost universally within North Fair Oaks. So North Fair Oaks parents and students alike flag the need for improved school meals. That's pretty universal. Some parents say their kids don't eat all day because the food is of such low quality. The current food offerings have also been exacerbating cultural disparities as they only highlight traditional American fare. There's this opportunity to use school meals to bridge cultural gaps by cooking delicious, fresh meals that showcase food from the diversity of Redwood City student cultures. The low food quality has also resulted in school meals becoming kind of a class signifier. So those who eat school meals are viewed as lower class, which leads to students not being willing to eat school meals because it's uncool. And this is also an opportunity for change. If meals were of higher quality, more parents would have their students eat them, which would reduce the stigma surrounding school meal participation. This is especially apparent in higher grades, but we also see it in lower grades, especially at schools in North Fair Oaks in particular. Parents also have shared that they really rely on these meals, and improving school meals is a top priority because the low quality has resulted in students not participating, especially at higher grades. Parents and student and community organizers alike have noted that they've noticed a general attitude that families from low income households, which is often code for our Latinx community, should be thankful for school meals, but without recognition that many of our families value fresh ingredients and that delicious meals play a really important role in our heritage. One quote that kind of highlights that is, "My culture has a lot of embedded indigenous values of taking care of the earth and our bodies, and I hate that they think our Redwood City Latinx community wants convenience foods." So that's one quote from one of the parents that we talked to. Some of the North Fair Oaks parents were frustrated because they felt like the burden of healthy meal education was entirely placed on them, and that they get blamed when their children develop unhealthy eating habits and or health consequences associated with food, despite being offered unhealthy options at school and being surrounded by school friends making the same unhealthy choices at school. I also want to note that COVID has exacerbated these issues. There have been major supply chain issues when it comes to food procurement, major staffing issues, but we also have heard over and over again that these issues have been challenges since before the pandemic. So it's not that they're new within the pandemic. This has been going on for a long time. Another thing that we noticed is that a lot of the North Fair Oaks parents were a little bit nervous about talking directly to the school board So we decided to put out a survey so that parents could communicate their experiences and concerns in a way that felt comfortable and worked with their schedules. We also had a paper version of the survey that parents helped each other fill out when one wasn't as comfortable with reading and writing. We had an English version of the survey and then a Spanish version of the survey. We had almost 250 people fill it out, the majority of which were from North Fair Oaks. And I'm going to share my screen and just super quickly go through the results here. All right. Okay, you guys all see that all right? I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay, so let's see. All right, so instead of just reading through the summary, I'll take y'all through the data. All right, so we had a pretty wide range of schools fill it out, but this survey was specifically targeted at Redwood City School District community schools. So most of the responses were from Kennedy, Hoover, Taft, and Garfield in that order. The survey was mostly filled out by parents, but we also had 21 students and 1 teacher fill out the survey. So it was really interesting to get the perspective of both parents and students. So the first question was, does your school cafeteria need better quality food? Almost universally, everyone said yes to this, which is no surprise. By the time you're filling out this survey, you probably think that there needs to be some improvement. The responses were the same between the Spanish survey and the English survey. Do you or your student ever not eat meals served at school because they are low quality? 14% of the respondents said no. So that's a huge percentage that said that either the student or the parents noting for their student don't eat meals because of the quality. And one thing I want to point out is that this is more common among parents or students who preferred to fill out the Spanish language survey. So this is disproportionately impacting our Latinx community. And you're going to see that that's kind of a theme throughout this, is the equity issues that play into food quality. The next question was, do you or your student ever come home from school hungry because they do not want to eat meals served at school? 80% of respondents said yes. That's a staggering number of students who are going home hungry because they don't want to eat the food that's served at school. And again, the parents and students who filled out the Spanish survey were disproportionately impacted by this. The next question was, does your student ever feel looked down on for eating school meals? So 33% of the combined responses said yes, which again is a really big percentage. And if you look at the Spanish survey responses, almost 57% said yes. So more than half of students feel looked down on when they eat the school meals, rather than feeling served, feeling safe, feeling like they're in a safe place to eat lunches. Do the school meals reflect your culture? Only 14% of respondents said yes. And once again, many fewer of the Spanish survey respondents said yes than the English survey respondents. So then we had a question, which was, how can our school meals be improved? And the 3 areas, you can see that everyone, there's a lot that needs to change. There's so many things that people flagged. The ones that kind of came out on top were food made from fresh ingredients, less processed entrees, and meals that model what adults and honestly children should be eating. I'm not going to read through all of the comments from parents and students, but if anyone is interested in reading these, I am more than happy to share them. You know what I should have done is put my email at the end of this. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Please be patient with me. There you go. So this is my email. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to dive into this data, if you want to see the comments from parents. And we took these results to Superintendent John Baker, and he agreed to consider a pilot at Hoover next year that would incorporate more fresh ingredients into the menu. So my goal here is twofold. One is to flag this as a critical issue in the North Fair Oaks neighborhood because it has major impacts on childhood hunger and health. And two, to ask your support in advocating for the pilot program that the school district is considering at Hoover. And my secret third agenda item, or agenda, the third thing I want to do, I'll just say, is if there are any parents listening, or if any of the council members know of parents, especially in Hoover, Garfield, and Taft, who are interested in this issue, who wouldn't mind spending, 1 hour max a month advocating for their school, telling us their experiences, we would love to have more representation on our and leadership in the Healthy School Meals Coalition to make sure that we are advocating effectively for North Fair Oaks. So again, my email, please reach out to me if anyone is interested in these issues, and I am more than happy to take questions.
Do we have any questions from council members for Jess? Let's see. Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, go ahead, please.
Jessica, just to say thank you for your presentation. I myself have no children, but I learned a great deal from your presentation. Thanks again for coming on, and I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez. Linda, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. So you mentioned Hoover, Garfield, and Taft. So are those the three schools where you have your 200 parents? Are they representing those three schools?
No, and that is why I'm trying to get more representation. So the survey results were predominantly from those schools and Kennedy as well. But on the coalition, we, by and large, have representation from non-Bayside schools. So we would love to get more representation, have more people in leadership.
Okay, because technically Hoover and Taft are not in North Fair Oaks. Garfield is, but so we're looking at Fair Oaks, and I don't know what's there anymore. Is it the charter school? I forgot the name of it. Actually Selby Lane, where a lot of the kids from North Fair Oaks near El Camino, a lot of that neighborhood goes to Selby Lane. So yeah, those might just be two other locations to recruit. But thank you for your information. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. And that's a great point. And we do have several Selby Lane, Adelante Selby parents involved very deeply.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any hands raised. Are there any public comments on the Spanish line?
Thanks, Diana. Through the chair, there are none at this moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Victor. Since the charter of the North Fair Oaks Community Council limits our input as a council to the Board of Supervisors, we can't take action as a council on this item as it's directed to the Redwood City School District, Redwood City School Board. What we can do as individuals is to sign the letter that Jessica has addressed to the Redwood City School District and Board encouraging them to pursue healthy food alternatives for students throughout the district. The way we can do that is to have staff circulate the letter to the council and have each member indicate if he or she would like their name to appear on it. Now, Tim has reviewed this to ensure that we aren't violating our charter. This does not require a vote as council members are acting as individuals. So what I'd like to ask each of the council members to do right now is to watch their email. We'll circulate this letter requesting support and reply back in the affirmative if you wish to have your name appear on this.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
No, it's something as Jess and I have gotten to know each other, this is something that I think is just an absolute priority for the children of our neighborhood. So we need to spend some time and really work on this. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight, Jessica.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Terrific. That wraps us up for tonight. I'd like to thank our presenters. I'd like to thank the members of the public who attended and participated this evening, as well as Penn TV and the press for covering our meeting. As always, thanks to our county staff, Emma, Cecia, Tim, Justin, Victor, and Kenny for their support. We ran very late this evening.
I know.
And I wanted to let you know how much the council appreciates your support. We'll do a better job of balancing.
I'm
agenda
sorry,
items.
but I think through the chair, I think we need to do more than that. I think maybe that agenda needs to be shortened or shorter amounts of time or something.
Yeah.
Because this is way too much. 45 minutes over is way too much.
No, and to be honest with you, Linda, it's on me. I had a very full agenda. We had a couple of other things come up.
I know everybody wants to get on the agenda, but you're going to have to say no and somehow just shorten it because this is too much.
No,
anyway,
I appreciate that.
Anyway. Thank you, Brooks.
Okay. No, the agendas going forward will be better. Let's put it that way. Next meeting's April 28th. We have a couple of presentations from planning and building, including an update on the housing inventory that's going to be used in the update of the county general plan. We're getting an update from the sheriff's office, as well as a presentation from Larry Moody of Job Train. Who provides job training resources to members of the North Fair Oaks community. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
I heard Ever, I heard Linda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your patience this evening with a very long agenda.
Good
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.